Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again, and today I'm going to be doing a me versus the critics of a game I like, and in this case it's Dixit. Just a reminder to everybody, this is partly in fun, it's partly for you to see what critics say about the game so you can get a better idea of if it's something that you may or may not like, and you know, maybe we'll get a few laughs out of it in the process. So, and I might get a little frustrated and angry, which maybe will be entertaining to y'all as well. So let's go ahead and get this started. On BoardGameGeek.com, what do we have? Okay, so I'm going to post somewhere over here what the overall distribution of the ratings are from 1 to 10 on BoardGameGeek, which, as you'll be able to see, there's a lot of 8s. 8 is the most popular, then 7, then 6, then 9, and then 10, and then it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, for the most part, very popular. The average is 7.3, which I gave it a 9 in my review, so obviously I like it more than the average person, but the average person does like it. So, let's go ahead and start with the 1s and see what kind of hatred we can find for this game. Okay, game about figuring out dreamscapes, a suiting theme for a game that will definitely make you want to make your own dreams instantly. I don't even get it, but I disagree with them. Okay, it was awful. I hate it with all my guts. I don't know why. Going into this, I'll just say, I can see why some people wouldn't like this game, don't get me wrong, but I'm hoping that some of these people will give a good reason as to why they don't like it. SMJJ, whoever that is, loves this game, therefore I hate it. That's not a reason to give it a 1. I bought this for a wife a number of years ago, figuring it's artsy, and she loves art. She didn't even enjoy it. We played it once, and when we did play it, it was me and several females. I didn't stand a chance because we are wired different. Would never play again. I would say this, just because you're wired differently does not necessarily mean that you're going to do bad or good relative to the rest of the players. It's about reading each other's mind. Now, don't get me wrong, it could be that you can manipulate the overall course of each round if you're the one giving the clue and playing the first card. Yes, if you can purposely say things that some people will know and other people won't, that will benefit you. But again, like I said in my review, I think you should play to avoid doing that. You should try not to say things that not everyone would understand. That could have been his problem. He doesn't make it totally clear. Ugliest art in any game ever produced, subject to the flimsiest interpretation. Hate this game. To say it's ugly is, in my opinion, very unfair, but at the same time, it is a personal thing, and if you think it's ugly, you think it's ugly. So I can't really argue with him there. I just would say I do like it, but you can see for yourself what the cards are, so that's that. But he says subject to the flimsiest interpretation. Yeah, that's the point. That's part of the fun of the game to me, is seeing the way after the cards are revealed and everyone's trying to figure out who they think, which card was the original card. After you reveal which one was the original card, seeing how everyone thinks why they played the card they did, why they chose the card they did. I've had so many times where someone will say, well, I picked this card because of X reason, but the person who played it said, well, I didn't even play it for that reason, I played it for this reason. But both tied into the original word, phrase, or whatever that the active player chose. And to me, that's the fascinating part. The interpretations are almost limitless, and that makes it fascinating. Seeing the way people's minds work, what they can get out of a picture, and it's just but obviously that didn't work for this guy, which is unfortunate. After playing that and activity, I'm sure that I hate games where I have to guess other players' ideas. I don't want to play such games again. Okay, fair enough. If you don't like a game where you're trying to read other people's minds, so to speak, this is not the game for you. I'll agree there. Party game I pulled out for people who can't think strategically. That's, first of all, not a reason to give it a 1, but to say that you pull it out for those kind of people, I would agree with that. If you're playing with a bunch of people who are, they want something just casual and simple, they don't want to have to do a lot of thinking or tactics or strategy, yeah, sure, it's great for that. But that doesn't mean it's bad, because you have to be able to just get into the social aspect of the game and the mind aspect, the interpretation aspect, to make it fun. If you don't like that, yeah, and that must be what this guy's implying. He likes stuff with strategy, and if it doesn't have it, my thing is, if you're going to give it a 1, why would you pull it out? I would not pull out a 1, no matter who was there. If there's a bunch of people who can't play strategic games, I'm not going to pull out a game that I think is a 1, so I think that's unfair. Not a game, just an activity. I disagree with him there, but, you know, what do you say? I'm not really into party games, although there are a few I really like, example, Taboo and Pictionary. Dixit was a party game that left me cold. Okay, well, so therefore, I can't really argue with you because you didn't give a reason. The anti-war game. Need a good imagination, probably a good time to play with non-gamers. I know so many people who like it among the Eurogamer crowd. Conversely, these are the people least likely to play a nice, tedious war game. Grin. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, and I like war games, or I call them war games. I guess there's maybe a little bit of the actual qualification of what a war game is isn't so clear to me sometimes. But dudes on a map, I like dudes on a map type games, and you know, so I get the idea. Yeah, this isn't my typical wheelhouse type of game. However, it turns out that for me it works really well. I like both. This guy doesn't. The optimal play as the judge is for only one. As the judge, what do they? I don't even know what they mean by the judge, but maybe they mean the active player who chooses a card. The optimal play as the judge is for only one person to guess your card. That is true. I agree with that because you don't want a lot of people getting those 3 points. You want just one person to get their 3 points so you can get your 3 points. It says that way you get 3 points and only one other person gets 3 points. Okay, exactly. Yeah, he agrees. So the optimal play is to just grunt and not give any clue at all. Then random chance ensures a high likelihood that at least one player will choose your card. Seems broken to me. That is ridiculous. I mean, to sit here and act like you should just... That's not even playing the game. It's a game about trying to choose a card that matches with something... Say something about the card that's... the card evokes. You're not trying to... This guy is, I can only imagine, the type of person who believes in winning for the sake of winning, couldn't care less about anything else. That's what this comes across as. I'm not saying this is what he's like, but that's what it comes across as. And that because he's basically saying, I don't want to play the game the way it's meant to be played, which is to pull from the card something that's somewhat subtle, not too obvious, and then everyone else gets to play their cards trying to match that subtlety to the best of their ability. He just wants to try to win by just in the hopes that, you know, random chance helps him win. That's not a reason to give it a 1. I mean, he's not even playing in the spirit of the game. While Dixit is quite fun, it loses its charm quite fast, and it isn't what I could call a good game. Wouldn't call it a game as much as an activity. Perfect for those times or groups where strategy is more an obstacle than anything else. This game actually gets worse every time I play it. Okay, so I can understand where he's coming from. I get the idea that I can see why some people wouldn't call it a game. To me it is, but I can see why some people wouldn't because it's a little ethereal, the idea of saying something about a card that's not too on the nose and not too obscure so that at least someone will get it. Yeah, I can see that, but I'm telling you, for the right group, this works so well because you see people trying to read each other's minds, come to the idea of what would they have thought, and it makes for an interesting discussion. But that being said, I do agree that it's better for people who aren't into something that's really strategic for the most part. Or people who are into strategic things, but they just want something different, something lighthearted, just to have a good conversation about what's going on in the game. So still, and for me, it doesn't get worse every time I play it. I'll say this, if you have just the base game cards, if you played it a lot with just that, it probably would start getting a little stale after a while. But whenever you have... Or it depends on if you play with the same group of people also. If you play with a variety of different people, that will keep it very lively and fresh. But if you had just a couple of expansions, one would probably be enough. But add 2 expansions, and at this point I have 3, and I probably won't get any more than that. But you know, get a few expansions. It will give you so much variety in the cards, and just seeing how people... I think I have more fun every time I play it. But the reason why is because I get to see more and more and get surprised each time by the stuff people come up with. It just blows my mind. My dad, he comes up with very unique words and phrases for his cards when it's his turn. My mom has a little bit of a hard time coming up with her answers, but she does a good job once she comes up with it, and it's always very challenging to find it. And my wife, she's pretty straightforward in hers, and it's the fact that everyone's a little different in the way that they try to come up with their clue. That's part of the fun, is trying to pick up on those things, the way they think, and apply it to the cards when they turn up. I like it. This game stinks, stinks, stinks. Why does it have a board? The hole was intriguing. What's it for? It turns out nothing. It's a card game and a boring one. The hole, I don't know what he means. Maybe there's a different edition of Dixit. Maybe I don't know. The board is useful because it gives you a place to line up the cards. Again, if he's talking a different edition, I can't speak to that. In mine, the board is very helpful because it reminds you what the points, how the points work. And since it's not totally intuitive at first, it's nice to have it there. It has a score track. That's useful. I mean, come on. I don't see what the problem is. Okay. I can't really deal with that. Let's move on to the twos. This person says, oh, let's make sure we have only comments. Okay, amateur art exhibition with points. Definitely not a game, though. I would not call it amateur art because a lot of it's just creative and it's unique, and it's just different style. I was about to say something a little extreme, probably, but art is very, very subjective. Let's put it that way. There's some stuff that sells for thousands of dollars that I'm thinking to myself, my kid could do that. I could do better than that, but different people have different idea of what good art is. You know, it ranges from Norman Rockwell to abstract art and modern art, and within that range, there's so much possibility. And I like the art just because I see the creativity and the imagination that goes into it. I can see why some people wouldn't like it. We'll put it that way. Fantastic illustrations. Okay, this guy does like it. Everything else, thumbs down. The optimal strategy is either to give a targeted inside reference to a friend or give a random clue that has nothing to do with the cards you play so that it's impossible for all of your opponents to choose your card. To counter this, your opponent's best play is to do the same thing, effectively making Dixit completely broken or random. Is this strategy against the spirit of the game? I don't care. Any rules implemented to disable this strategy are unenforceable. The cards in this game could be used for an interesting variant of Codenames Pictures. Okay, well, I'll give him that. It would be cool to use the Dixit cards in Codenames Pictures, but this is ridiculous to me. To sit here and, I mean, he's basically addressing what I was saying earlier. To me, you should make it a rule that's not in the rules, but I would make it a custom house rule that you cannot do what this guy's saying. He obviously couldn't care less that it's not in the spirit of the game. To me, that I would agree that ruins the game. So don't play that way. I mean, if he's defeating his own argument, in my opinion, because he's implying, well, the game's no good because you can do this. Well, just make it a rule that you can't do that. And he says it's unenforceable. Make it enforceable. Say, listen, if you do this, if you make a clue, if after it's over and we find out that you didn't have any reason to give the clue that you gave, then you lose 5 points. That is enforceable. I don't see how that's hard. And then I wouldn't play with someone who's not going to actually participate in the point of the game. I would just dismiss them and not worry about them anymore. Never invite them to a Dixit game. Okay, not edgy enough for my tastes. To tell you the truth, I absolutely hated this game. Made me nauseous. Oh my gosh, okay. Don't know what to tell you. I never understood why this game got this spiel de genres. Well, it's because it's fun. Boring, and honestly, is it even really a game? No, I would say yes. A cheap knockoff of Apples to Apples with very bad plot. Well, it doesn't have a plot. Neither does Apples to Apples. They're not. These aren't RPGs that we're playing here, people. Strange. Optimal strategy is to target one person with a clue that no one else can guess. I agree with that, but again, that should be a rule that you cannot. You just can't do that because that's just silly. It's purposely countering the point of the game. Therefore, you should make it a house rule, in my opinion. If you don't like house rules, that might be a reason for you not to want to play this game. Or if you know people, if the people you're going to play with are the type that would take advantage of that, yeah, that might be a reason not to buy Dixit. I will agree with that, but I think it's an easy fix. The experience felt very random, and only by absolute chance that I got any points. This game should only ever be played with groups of friends you know very well. Otherwise, you will have more fun with 2 dice and trying to roll the number someone has chosen in their head and not told anyone else. I see this, in the spirit of what he's saying, I agree, which is it's better to play with people that you know. I would somewhat agree with that, because if you all know each other, you can probably have a better time because you can kind of read each other's minds better. And if you're playing with total strangers, it's a little harder because then you don't really know how they think. And you can't get into their mind as much to try to feel out what they were thinking when they gave the clue. But I would still say, even with absolute strangers, you can still have fun with this, but that would, in fact, in some ways, that would solve these other people's problem, which is that if you're playing with people that you know, you can give specific clues for a specific person. If you don't know them, then you can't do that. So then it is more just based off of the clue that you're giving and trying to be in that perfect middle point. So there's advantages to both, I would say. Really surprised this is so highly rated. If I'm going to play a game this arbitrary, I'd much rather it be Apples to Apples or Cards Against Humanity. Personally, Cards Against Humanity is too vulgar for me, and Apples to Apples is too boring for me. So I guess this is just one of those things that different people have totally different tastes. I just don't. I played Apples to Apples one time, and I would not play it again unless somebody just really wanted to. And then I'd play just for to be amiable about it, but it's not a game I enjoy. Cards Against Humanity, at the times I did play it, yes, it was funny, but it's too vulgar. I don't want to go back to that. But this, to me, is so different than those. It's just not even the same. I strongly dislike Dixit, as it more often than not results in two players using inside jokes to win points. Yeah, so yeah, same thing. Same thing that I'm saying that you shouldn't be allowed to do. Really didn't enjoy this game. It's far too abstract for me. It is abstract, so I can understand that. If you don't like that, that's, so be it. Nice game to play if the group is in the mood. Well, for sure. That's most games. Really did not like it at all. I'm sorry. Played it once. Not my cup of tea. Maybe too abstract for my brain. I can see some people would say that. Not my kind of game. After a few runs, it gets boring quickly. I disagree with that. Played twice some years ago. I like it as much as I like Apples to Apples, which is not at all. Now, I agree with him there. Apples to Apples is pretty boring. But I still don't see the comparison. I mean, I know that there's... I don't know what the I don't know. Understand what the comparison is, y'all. If y'all see what the comparison is, if there's something about Apples to Apples that you would say is similar to Dixit and why people are saying this, please leave in the comments and explain it to me. Maybe I don't remember Apples to Apples well enough to understand, but there are some great games built on the same mechanism. My favorites are Bubble Talk and Cards Against Humanity. I had a blast with both of those games. I don't see how Bubble Talk I've never heard of, but Cards Against Humanity, I don't see how it's relative at all, because my understanding of Cards Against Humanity is that the person asks the question, everyone else plays a card to answer the question or will fill in the blank or whatever it is, and the person who read the question just picks the card that they thought was the funniest, or they just liked it, or they like that answer the most. It's not about trying to figure out who did what. It's just about everyone else is trying to please the person who read the card. It's almost like the total opposite. It's because in Dixit, you're trying to figure out what the person who made their statement or their word or phrase, you're trying to figure out what they did. Not you're trying to make the person who did it happy or, please or satisfy them. I don't see how to me, they're just totally opposite. I don't get it. Why do people like this game? I'm all for bluffing games and games with odd premises, but this is just boring. There is little to say about this game because there is so little game to even comment on. The art is pretty cool, and I would just prefer an art book rather than to ever play this pathetic attempt at a game again. Okay, well, can't really help you there, but I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I love the artwork, but I despise the gameplay. Oh my. This isn't a game. It's an exhibition of a very limited collection of art. The art is fine. There's no point in making it a game. Well, I think that there is. Obviously, we differ. Honestly, the only reason I play this is if it's the only game getting ready to start up in the meetup. It's just so boring to me. Wow. Okay, Torture. Cleverly disguised as a board game. In the 1960s, the Rorschach, or gosh, I don't know how to pronounce that, but the Rorschach, or whatever, commonly known as the inkblot, was the most widely used projective test. In 2003, a report was published that stated claims made by proponents were found to be less than favorable, but that the test possessed validity greater than chance. A ringing endorsement indeed. Fast forward to the year 2008, and this kitsch is thrust upon us and manages to amass somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 fans, 20,000 owners, and a rating hovering just shy of the stratosphere, all on the greatest board game resource on the planet. Different strokes and all, but I am left mind-numbingly perplexed. The art, which generally receives accolades, struck me as extremely maudlin, which I don't know what that means, portending the dour experience that no doubt was soon to follow. In that respect, at least, Dixit did not fail to fulfill its promise. That was a lot of fancy words to basically say he just doesn't like it because he doesn't appreciate the art, I guess. So I don't really know what to tell him other than you got to get into that social creative aspect. No surprise, not my kind of game at all. Apples to apples with pictures. What is the apples to apples reference? What am I forgetting about apples to apples? I just don't get it. I've played 2 or 3 times at my FLGS's board game night, and I really don't care for it. Clue givers ultimately determine whether the game is fun or not, as the clues can range anywhere from obvious to inside joke. Rules are mostly straightforward, but I find the scoring to be annoying. Ultimately, I dislike any game that heavily favors players who have long-standing friendships and relationships and can simply reference in-jokes during play for an advantage. Again, I think that that's something that it's up to you to house rule that out. I've never seen it as a problem in any of the times I've played. In fact, whenever I give my clue, I purposely think, does everybody know what it is that I'm going to say? Because if I don't think that they do, I don't even consider it. That borderlines on cheating, referencing my discussion with, my video I did with Zach about cheating in board games. That borderlines on it. I know it's not technically against the rules, but you're purposely leaving people out in a way that is, I don't know. I just don't like it. I just don't like it, and I purposely don't do it whenever I play, and I would tend to think that most people would do the same, but I don't know. Maybe there's enough people who are so desperate to win that they just, what can I possibly come up with in this card so that only this person will have a clue what I'm saying? I don't like it. Dixit is apples to apples made worse. Here we go again with the apples to apples. I hate apples to apples for its complete arbitrariness. The way players with a mental link can throw the game. How turns don't build upon each other, so there's zero strategy. Dixit takes all those bad elements from apples to apples and makes it worse by replacing the words with pictures. These are terrible pictures. They're nice fantasy drawings, but in terms of actually inspiring clues, they're non-starters. I've played this once with 3 other people and my spouse, and I both found it miserable. I guess we both found it miserable is what he meant to say. I would disagree, though. He says that they're not inspiring. The cards aren't inspiring to give clues. I think that they are extremely inspiring to give clues. It's just a matter of mastering which clue to give. That's the challenge, because it's easy to give obvious clues. That's easy peasy. Giving more subtle clues is the hard part, but I have never found a time where someone gave a clue and it was a dud as far as after everyone else played their cards. I've never seen one that happened that way. It's easy to do. So this person is either very non-creative or not imaginative or something, because to me there's tons of, every card almost has a plethora of things that you can, be inspired by to come up with a clue. Okay, this may be the last one I'll do. Please don't make me play this game again. The gameplay is okay. There are 100 or so cards with illustrations that look like they were drawn by Salvador Dali during his worst nightmares, and the active player gives some label to a card, and the other players try to guess which card he or she has labeled. Well, yes, that is very lame, but it's okay, easy to learn, and moves along quickly. But I may not sleep for a week thinking about how extremely annoying and disturbing the artwork is on these cards. I mean, one card has an alien with a hose coming out of a nostril, and you're supposed to describe it such that some opponents can figure out which card it is, but others cannot. If they all figure out your card based on your definition, or if none do, then you score no points. I learned this at a game club. Dixit was being played at 4 separate tables. The moment the games completed at each table, it was quickly put away, and the players rushed to the game shelf to find something different and much better to play. Now, time to go to bed. But I'm still thinking of that alien with a hose up his nose, or the mother trying to pull her daughter out of the throat of a monster trying to swallow her. Yick. Honestly, I don't remember those cards, but there are some cards that, some of them maybe do borderline on the morbid side, but they're not like gross or gory or anything like that. They're usually very fanciful. In fact, I'd say they're all pretty fanciful. So I just wanted to say, I don't think anyone, for the most part, except for this guy and maybe a couple of others in the world, are going to be like, oh gosh, these cards are so bothersome. I mean, I've played with people who don't like gruesome stuff, and nobody was fazed or bothered. So I just don't remember the particular cards that they're talking about. Of course, it could be that they're from some of the expansions. I don't know. I don't have even close to all the expansions. But the thing is, I just think that I'm going to close there as far as reading any more complaints. I guess my thing is this. If you don't like seeing other people, how they think, how they connect pictures to words. That's one of the things that the box on Dixit says. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And that really is the point of this game, is pulling out interesting connections in ways that you might not have ever thought of before, because each time you play, you'll come up with something different, or someone else will come up with something and you go, oh wow, I never thought of that. I mean, there's been times I'll be holding my hand and I'll think, I can't think of a clue to give for this card. Then someone else gives a clue on their turn and I go, perfect for this card, and I wouldn't have thought of it myself. If you don't get into that part of the game or enjoy the artwork, which you can go online and see tons of pictures of what the different pictures are, but if you don't get into that, yes, you probably won't like this game. But if you find that interesting, trying to read people's minds, see how they connect pictures to words and phrases and songs and movies and all those things, then this is the game for you. So it's just one of those things. I can understand why some people don't like it. It is different, it's unique, and it's not your typical game that you'd put on the table and you're moving pieces or trying to figure out how to win that way. It's definitely different, but as a social experience and psychological game and social game, to me, excellent. I rated it a 9 out of 10. Still feel that way. These people haven't changed my mind. So be it. But that is what a lot of these critics on Board Game Geek are saying. If you enjoyed this or if it was helpful, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. And subscribe if you want to see more. And leave any questions or comments you have down below, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. So take care, everybody. Bye.